I'm a Samhain, and what's a Samhain? A Samhain is the mother of the witches. And besides being the mother of the witches, I work within the currents of the Orishas. Well, what are Orishas? Orishas are the African spirits. So I want to talk to you a little bit about who the Orishas are and how they ascended. So does everybody know Osiris? Does everybody know that Osiris is a constellation? And is everybody aware that the constellation Osiris resides directly above Giza? Does everybody know where Giza is? Giza is the center of our world, the literal center. And Osiris lives above Giza. And it is said that the Orishas ascended out of Osiris and came down into Africa, into Giza. And that's where they come from. So there are these ancient alien-type gods and goddesses that transcended down onto the earth and came forth to teach us the most important thing that us as Masonic beings choose to learn, which is knowledge. Their greatest power and their greatest skill was to ascend to teach us that we are these magnificent, energetic beings, and that we're not just a meat suit, although we're that too. And so, what I'd like to talk to you about is how the Orishas have guided me in my life, because they are these powerful spiritual beings that represent the power of the elements. And those of you who work in magic, do you have any spiritual practitioners here? Do you have an altar? Do you do any kind of spiritual work? Anybody? Awesome. So those of you who work with spiritual work and spiritual altars, we use the power of the elements: earth, air, water, fire, and spirit. Well, these Orishas represent each of these elements. And in Africa, there are very specific names for them. One of them is actually the name Happy. Believe it or not, the true element is known as the name Happy. And those of us who work within the temples, we focus on the power of happiness. So what are we really doing? Are we engineering the power of the elements and everything that we are? Possibly. So my invitation here is for you to be open and receptive to how we are all natural Orishas. And some people may think, oh, that's a really big statement, or that's kind of crazy to say. But we're all connected to a constellation. Every single one of us here has a constellation. We all have a zodiac sign. And if you have a zodiac sign, then you have a constellation. So if Giza has their own constellation, which is Osiris, and the Orishas were birthed out of Osiris, then how are we any different? We're not. Just a theory for you guys to try on and see how you feel about it. So the next thing that I want to talk to you about is the power of the crossroads. Does anybody know what the crossroads are? Come on, crossroads? Aren't you guys magicians? Crossroads. Somebody knows about the crossroads, right? Okay, so what are crossroads? So in Ifa, which is a form of Orisha religion, which is the eldest religion of the Orisha, is known as Ifa. And then we have Santeria, we have Paramayombe, we have Kumbandara, and they continue through the threads, but it began with Ifa. And so in Ifa, we call on the power of a crossroad deity known as Eshu, or Elegua. In Voodoo, we call him Papa Legba. And so you cannot get anything done without calling on Eshu, or Papa Legba, or the being of the crossroads. If the crossroads aren't open, then you don't have magic. And I don't say that lightly. You have to open up the veils, you have to open up the other side to call in the power of Eshu. And when we call in the power of Eshu, and we call in the power of Elegua, we knock, we sing, we jump, we dance, we laugh, and we have kind of like an internal party to calm down the power of the spirit. Now, once Eshu is invoked, and And we call in his energy, which is, this is something you can feel, and if you're a ceremonial magician, or if you've ever worked in the power of magic, when the power of the Orisha moves through you, you know. When the power of your spirit guide, whoever that spirit guide may be, you know. It's an automatic knowing, and no one or nothing can tell you that it's not real, because it's an embodiment. That's the one thing that I love about the Orishas. You can feel them when you work with them. It's almost impossible not to feel them, because they're so physical, which is one of the reasons why we use dance and prayer to call them in. You cannot call on an Orisha without some form of music or some form of movement. You can try, but they're not really going to come through. And that's the other invitation I like to really teach people in all ways of magic, to not get trapped in your altar, and to allow yourself to be able to go beyond your altar and focus more on the energy alone. You know, back in the day, we didn't have decades. We didn't have pots. We didn't have all the stones. We didn't have all of those things. All we had was the spirit and us. What happens when you're on a journey or you're traveling, and does that mean you can't do your magic or you can't pray because you don't have your, Nanganga with you? And a Nanganga is a cauldron. And we use the cauldron, and how many pantheons use a cauldron? I have not studied one pantheon that doesn't have a cauldron. And in Ifa, or in Palo we call it Nanganga. So I like to teach people to get outside of your tools, and remember that you are the instrument, you are the tool, so that you can be with your Orishas and your spirits everywhere. So everybody with me so far?
Yes.
Okay, so really quick, anybody have any questions about anything I just said? All right, I'm going to continue. How am I doing on time?
You're doing great.
Awesome. Okay, so I want to talk to you a little bit more about the Orisha spirits and who they really are, because these are very powerful spirits and they're very fun spirits. So I'm going to start with Earth, which is the North Node. So those of you who work with the power of the North, you are going to be a Taurus, a Virgo, or a Capricorn. And so those of you who are Earth energy, we have several Orishas that work with Earth energy, and one of them is Ogun. Ogun the Meji. And Ogun is the cauldron, or the Nanganga, but he's also the machete. And he is a very powerful Orisha. I call him Papa Ogun in my personal practice, because he's a very powerful protector. But he's a hard worker, and he's a very powerful creator, and he will literally crack the whip on you when you are not working at his level. So that's one of the things that you have to know about Orishas. When you take them on, they can be very strict. And that's not easy, because they will push you to be your greatest. I'm sure that in other pantheons we experience the same thing, and I have, especially with my goddess works. But the Orishas have been one of the most challenging pantheons for me, because they really ask you to be honest. You have to be truthful. There's no room for mirroring with the Orishas. You have to be honest. And if you start working with an Orisha and you try playing games, they'll come at you. And they'll make you look at it yourself and go, that's not true. So truth is important when it comes to Orisha energy. So Ogun is earth, and Ogun will bring you into a space where not only do you have to really look at yourself and be grounded, but he will also inspire you to be creative. So when you're seeking creative energy, Ogun is one of the Orishas that you can go to because he will bring forth creativity in your life. Well, Ogun is also connected to a lot of other pantheons. Some people call him Thor or Odin. And that's just a little bit more about Ogun. So now I'm going to shift into our air, which is Oya. So those of you who know about air, you are a Gemini, you are a Libra, and you are an Aquarius. You are working in the power of the East Node. And when you call in the power of Oya, so who is Oya? Oya is the wind. And one of the things that I really love about Oya, she's also the symbol of the butterfly and the rainbow. And I love working with Oya because Oya will shift things for you. She'll shift them quickly. She's the goddess of sudden changes. She's also similar to the goddess Bridget in Buddha. But she focuses on creating change for you. So when you are in a space where you need change, she's the one to go to. But she also works in the power of the marketplace. So those of you who are in business, you can go to her and she will support you in business. Now, I'm not saying that you can just all of a sudden start working with Orishas and you're going to get results. There is a process, and we'll talk about some of the initiation processes in a little bit. But what's important to remember is that when you take on a power of an Orisha, they're here to teach you. And Oya specifically will support you in making the changes in your life that you need. And what else can I say about her? My own personal experience. Let me think about that for a second. One thing when I'm speaking, I like to be very honest with people, and I like to be very real. And I like to share my own personal experiences so it doesn't ever seem phony or like some kind of show. I like to speak from my heart. And what I can say when I'm calling into Oya, and I call her into my spirit to work with me, a lot of times the wind will start to blow, and I'll start having a lot of experiences with the wind. I don't know if any of you have experiences in your own practice, but when I start working with these spirits that are especially connected to the elements start corresponding to me. And I start having more experiences with wind than I normally would. Versus when I work with, a womb, I feel more grounded or I'm very creatively inspired. But when I'm with Oya, the wind tends to be in my circuit, and I live in a cul-de-sac, so what will happen is all of a sudden we'll have wind tunnels coming through, and my trees will start moving around, and I can literally feel her energy. Like she'll be present, and she'll move me in the way that I need to be moved. And that hasn't always been easy for me. But when you call on an Orisha, and if you ask them for help, you have to follow through, or it will just stop. And then they won't guide you and help you. With some of the other goetic beings, they're a little bit more flexible. But what I learned about Orishas is they're not flexible. If you ask them to do something, you better show up for it, and you better make for sure that you follow through. The other one that I really like working with is Chango. So Chango is fire, and he's also a dancer, and he brings in a lot of fire power for you. Those of you who are fire beings, so you are either an Aries, you are a Leo, or you are a Sagittarius. Are you a Sag?
No, Capricorn.
Capricorn. Okay, or a Sagittarius. And so those of you who work with the fire current, you have the opportunity to work with Chango. Now, of course, when you call in Orisha energy, and this is for the non-initiate. In American Ifa, which is what I've been trained in, is you have permission to get to know the Orishas as a non-initiate. Now, some paths don't believe that that's right. Some paths believe that you actually have to go through an initiation and have a guardian Orisha before you begin practicing. But in American Ifa, they don't teach that. They teach a little bit differently, and we'll get into that a little in a moment. So what I want to talk about is how Chango can come into your space and bring a lot of energy for you. But also, Chango can, at least in my experience, not only is he a guardian for you, but for me, being given the knife, he can support you with cutting things away. So those of you, when you need to remove something out of your life, then he's the one that, at least I've called on, and what I've learned, that he can cut things away that need to be cut away. And what I can say about him is that he's a very fun spirit, but he also is somebody who doesn't like to be bossed around, and he doesn't really like to put up with, what would I say, is it okay to say bullshit? He doesn't like that energy. And what I've learned from him is that it's important to respect him. I think with all Orishas it's important to respect him, but for me, what I've learned that if I don't respect him, then he'll go away and he won't be around. When I respect him and I offer what he asks of me, then he's very present for me. And I've learned when studying with different, Babalaos and different spiritualists that this is very, that American Ifa is very different than traditional Santeria and Palamayombe. And that has been a really powerful experience for me, because those of you who have been working with these Orishas in different settings, you've had a completely different experience than me. And that has been a really powerful quest for me, to be open and receptive to learning all the different ways people work with the Orishas, because there's so many different paths. And the one thing that I really like talking about and teaching people is, can you allow yourself to be yourself and stand in that regardless of what any other person thinks? Can you be in your own practice and love yourself in your practice and be in your practice and own that? Because that is who you are as a practitioner. Instead of allowing yourself to be shifted or told, no, you're not allowed to do this because it has to be done that way. And I've received a lot of that in practices. And working with Chango has really supported me in being strong and being myself and saying, no, this is what I want, this is who I am, and I'm not going to let you stop me from being who I am. And that's a Chango personality. Chango's like, this is who I am, and this is what I'm about, and if you don't like it, then too bad. And that's something that Chango has really supported me in, because there's a lot of detailing that happens sometimes when it comes to being a magical being. You're told, oh, well, you're supposed to do it this way, or you're not going to get that result. But what I like to teach people is, this is your magical system. You have your own experience. You are your own magical being. And even if you take on a godfather or you take on a household in whatever pantheon, remember that you have to be true to yourself. You may disrespect somebody. Somebody may get upset about the way that you do things, but it's your system. And if you go against yourself, then are you really being true to who you say you are as a magician and who you are as a spiritualist? So remember that. I think that is the most valuable lesson I have learned in working with Ifa and working with the Orishas, is to be true to myself, regardless of what anybody may think of me. And I've been told that I'm bullshit, or I haven't learned this way, or I'm supposed to learn that way. But no matter what, the Orishas have always showed up for me. And I get results. So pay attention to that. If somebody's telling you to do something, but you're still getting results, then you must be doing something right, or you wouldn't be getting results. And so that's what Chango has taught me, to really be true to myself and be strong no matter what. And then there's two more that I'm going to talk about, and that is Oshun, which is like everybody's favorite. Like Oshun is like the movie star of the Orishas. And she wears all this beautiful gold and yellow energy, and she's super flirtatious, and she's always looking in her mirror and dancing, and she likes to flirt with the guys. But there's also a different side of her, which is like this rapid, powerful river. And Oshun is the one Orisha you do not cross. That is the one energy that you don't want to mess with, because Orisha, Oshun will say, oh yeah, you want to cross me? Okay, let me put you in your place. She is always guaranteed to do that. And She's the sweet water. And she's the honey of life. She's like the hive of honey. And she's prosperity and richness and growth. And when working with her, I have learned that I have a beautiful orange tree that I created for her. And she really does bring sweetness to you when you ask her to. She teaches you how to laugh. When I work with her, she brings me birds, lots of birds. I'll pray to her, I'll spend time with her, and then all of a sudden I'll have a bunch of birds around me. And she inspires me in my dance. That's one of the things that is very important to us as Orishas and as practitioners of this path is our dancing. Because in our dancing, that's how we truly pray. That is our true prayer, is our dance. And without the dance, then that's not really the embodiment of the Orisha, at least in my opinion. And when I dance, I focus a lot on Oshun. She's the one who inspires me when I do my Orisha dancing. She's the one who brings out my playfulness and my fun aspect. And she definitely can bring you money, and she definitely can bring you a lover. So she's really good at that as well. And then the last one that I'm going to talk about, how am I on time?
You got roughly 15.
I got 15 minutes? Okay, good. Okay, so the last one I'm going to talk about is Yamoya. And I saved her for last because she is probably the most ancient and powerful Orisha there is, because she is also known as Mother Mary. She is known as Urzuli. She has been known as Isis. And she is everywhere. Some people even say she's connected to Guadalupe. But Mother Water, or Mama Wata, Yamoya, she is the mother of us all. She is the one who, not only does she bring us our daily blessings, but we really are all of her children. And she's the sea. We call her the Queen of the Seven Seas. There are churches and temples that are specifically devoted to her as Queen of the Seven Seas, or Queen of the Seven Stars. And she brings in a very powerful, loving energy. So those of you who need nurturing, those of you who need strength, those of you who are looking for a mother, she is the one who can bring that to you. And I mean that sincerely. There are times in our life when we need nurturing. There are times in our life when we are lost. There are times in our life when we really cannot see ourselves. And she's one of those Orishas that can make that happen for you. She can truly bring you home to your heart and support you in looking at yourself and who you are. And I'm grateful to her because my first experiences of her were with Mother Mary. And I had no idea that she was an Orisha. I just loved Mother Mary. I was gravitated to her ever since I was a child. And growing up as a Presbyterian, we're Prespers. We don't, worship Mother Mary. We just don't do that. We don't even have idols in our church. We have a cross, and that's it. And so I would be around my other friends or my other family who had a Cuban family that lived right next to us, and they had this beautiful Mother Mary shrine, and I couldn't stay away from it. Like, there was just a calling, and every time that I would go to church with friends or family, it was always Mother Mary. She was the first one that I would go to. And then as I started exploring in the African past, or even in Santeria and Palamaombe, Mother Mary is the first Orisha that you get. Now, some may disagree with that. Now, I'm not talking guardian Orisha, but she's one of the first Orishas that you are introduced to or are connected to, because she is our mother. And so my invitation to all of you is, when you are connecting to the mother energy, when you are seeking healing, Mother Mary is the one to go to. because she will make it happen for you. And Mother Mary also initiated hundreds and thousands of other women to be a mother archetype or a matriarch type for us. And we see her all over the place. We see her at Santa Monica, those of you who are in the Santa Monica area. We have statues of her all over the world. I mean, how many of you have seen a Mother Mary statue? I don't know anybody who hasn't ever seen a Mother Mary statue. But if I say, have you seen a Yemoya statue, you probably wouldn't know what that means. If I said, have you seen an Urzuli statue, you may not know what that means unless you're in Haiti or in different parts of the Congo. But if I say, have you seen Mother Mary, you're like, yeah, I know Mother Mary. That's a natural Orisha. That's an African spirit who has come here to be with us. And so the point that I'm getting at here is the Africans were a very powerful tribe, and they traveled all over the world to teach us this ancient lineage. They ascended from Osiris. They came down to the earth into the center of the world, which is known as Giza. And then they traveled out to the 4 points of the world and continued to move all the way through every single continent. They traveled into Europe, they traveled into India, they traveled into China, they traveled into the Atlantic, they traveled everywhere and taught these ancient teachings. And we're all learning them on some level in some pantheon. And I'll just share a little bit more about that, how those of you who know Ganesha, you guys know Ganesha, or Ganesh, or Ganesha? Well, Ganesha, he is a god of the crossroads. We also relate him to Eshu, or Papa Lemba. He's a different version of Papa Lemba, or Eshu. And so you see these continuous stories, or these parables, and all of these different pantheons. And what I love about this is that this is giving us permission to say these ancient teachings are all around the world. And it's not about being right or about being wrong. It's about, this is an ancient philosophy. This is sacred knowledge that everyone in the world knows in their own way. And that's what fascinates me the most in being a scholar and being someone who's here for knowledge, to study these paths and learn that, oh my gosh, in Africa and in India, they're practicing the same rituals in their own cultural way. You're just calling it something different and then using the tools that are connected to their world. So, some practices aren't going to have the same tools. We don't have the same foods in China that we do in Brazil. We didn't have that until we started traveling. Well, the same thing is with our religion and with our spiritual tools. How am I doing?
5 minutes of questions.
Right now?
5 minutes. Anyone have questions to answer?
5 minutes? You and I have to talk for 5 more minutes? Oh, no. I can do that. Okay.
I'm sorry, that was 25.
No, it's not. Let me see what else I can say. I just want to thank you all for being here. Truly, this has been a really fascinating opportunity. This is the first time I've actually got to speak openly about Ifa, about Sangarita, and about Palameombe. I have been speaking about the witches and about spirituality since the 1990s, from radio to television, especially with the power of the Vikings and the, I love witches. I'm all about witch energy and goddess energy. I'm talking about tarot, alchemy. I love talking about alchemy and of course, Masonic rites, which are the most sacred to my heart, but I can't talk about any of that. So the other thing that I'll touch base on is more about the dance. So I have been dancing the power of spirit since the Seminole Nation. So when I was about 5 or 6, I got initiated into the Seminole Nation. And that's when I started dancing, literally with just the drum. And we learned how the strongest way to connect with the earth is through the drum and your heartbeat. The drum and your heartbeat are connected. So those of you who like to move a lot in your energy or are constantly in rhythm or feeling or you know, moving your energy a lot, it's because you're moving the energy of your heartbeat. And when you allow yourself to connect to your heart, you're literally connecting to the source of life, and that is your own internal drum. And so when you find yourself moving consciously or unconsciously, ask yourself, how am I connecting? And through drumming, that is another way that we connect to the power of the earth, which is an earth energy.
Can you give us a sample of the rhythm?
A sample of the rhythm. Well, it will start like this, with your own heart. If you can get quiet enough to just listen to yourself, not to me, don't listen to me, listen to you. This is my heartbeat. My heartbeat is going to beat different than yours. But like clocks, if I continue to be in the energy, eventually we'll all connect to the rhythm.
So the pulse is set by the pulse of nature.
It is absolutely set by the pulse of nature. What else could it be set to?
Well, in Western culture, we tend to set our own pulse over something, and it's fabricated one, of course.
Yeah, don't we call that digital?
Yeah, it really relates more to Gregorian chant, where the measurement is not, say, based on its structure here, it's based on something that comes from the human faculty itself.
So what are the questions right now, correct?
Let's do that.
Okay, so what Master Merrick was saying is that the Gregorian chants are moving through us, and that we are connected by nature through Gregorian chants as well. I believe that's what
It's
you're
very
saying.
similar to what I am.
Thank you. Yes.
What constellation is the Oshun associated with?
What constellation or constitution?
I should say zodiac sign.
Zodiac sign. Well, she's water energy.
Oh.
So she's sweet water energy. So Oshun can be connected to anybody that Oshun calls to. So anybody can be a son or a daughter of Oshun if that is your guardian Orisha. But those who want to work with just elemental energy, then you would be a child of water, which would be Cancer. That would be, Scorpio, and then the Piscean, which is Hokmak. Thank you for that. Anybody? Yes.
You mentioned masonry. Are you a mason?
Am I a Mason? I'm not supposed to answer that.
So you're a secret mason?
I'm a secret Mason. I am a Maiden Lady. And I am in the process of being initiated as an Eastern Star. And I'm in Rosicrucian. Yes.
My family line on the female side has a long history of arrhythmia. Our heartbeats are not regular. Spiritually, what does that tell me?
You know, that is a really powerful question, because perhaps your bloodline is not directly connected to the earth, and it may be possible.
They're all water signs.
It may be possible that you're not earth beings, and see, you just answered it, you're all water signs. So that would make sense that your heartbeat would be a little bit shifted, because you're not connected to the earth, you're connected to the water. And so that would be a different energy. So you wouldn't be able to be directly connected to the earth, because your heartbeat isn't in rhythm with earth, it's in rhythm with water. And I don't think that that's a coincidence that all the women in your family, generation after generation, are water beings. Perhaps you're from Venus. Perhaps you're not from the earth, and maybe you're from Venus. You may be a different planet. You may not be an earthling. So you're definitely having a spiritual experience as a human being, but your family knows who they are. They know that they're not earthlings.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes.
Why Osiris and the Orion constellation for Giza? I mean, why do you pick that as your point that you...
My point for the Orishas or from my point of contact?
Either.
Because everything is a gateway through the constellation. We are the map of the stars. We are stars ourselves. And we did not come from the earth. We came from the sky. And as Orishas, we are African, and we are directly connected to Osiris. Osiris is the constellation of Africa, and that is the reason why.
Is that Orion constellation?
Orion's belt is connected to Osiris, yes. Orion's belt is an adjacent to Osiris, which is another channel that I won't get into today, but we can speak about that outside if you'd like.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Anybody else? Oh, come on. This is an opportunity for you to talk. Yes.
Is Giza the cradle of civilization then?
That's a really wonderful concept. Is Giza the cradle of civilization? Let's open this up to everybody. We have, how many more minutes we have?
2.
We have 2 minutes to do this. This is a great concept. We're here to learn, right? So is it possible, is Giza cradling all of us? Is Giza our true mother? That's a possibility. I think if we really study this and we really study history, everything begins and ends in our mother planet Africa. I could be wrong, but it's a possibility. That's my answer. Anybody else?
Well, you know what Huey Lewis says, the heart of rock and roll is the beat.
The heart of rock and roll is the beat.
And it's true, when you go to put together a song, it will, this is just an opinion of an old guy, but it will be successful if you can pull out that heartbeat. And people, and if it's not, people will walk away from it. Because it messes up their heart, the beat of their heart.
Well, sound, this is great. Sound creates vibration, and vibration creates movement.
Vibration.
So it's all about the vibration. So you're either connected to the vibration or you're not. Some of us like one vibration and the other does not. You have to go along with the vibration that resonates with you. If you do not, then you can go into chaos, and you don't want that. Are we complete?
We are completed.
Thank you everybody so much.